Today we're looking at the third best stretch for lordosis. So I've gone through the best one in a previous tutorial and also the second best one. Now we're talking about the third best one. So we're going to look at muscles, nerves, fascial line, and then we're going to look at the effects of lordosis, and then finally into the stretch. So what have we got here? Well, we're talking about the rectus femoris muscle, and you can see it here in green. Originates on the anterior inferior iliac spine, which is essentially, there's a little lump, there's a superior lump, which is a top lump, and a bottom lump. The bottom one is the inferior iliac spine. Then it goes all the way down into the tibial tuberosity, through the quadriceps tendon, through the patella, into the patella tendon, and then the little lump down here. So that is the muscle that we're talking about. We're now going to, next we're going to talk about the nerve. This muscle is innervated, very similar, as I mentioned in the previous tutorial. We've got psoas, iliacus, and adductors, and we're looking at basically L1 to L4, and rectus femoris is no different. So that's innervated by the femoral nerve from L2, 3, and 4. Why is this important to know? Because not only does it, or is it useful to treat the muscle itself with stretching, massage, movement, and things like that, but it's also good if there is some sort of irritation to the nerve root, which is coming out of the spine. It's very useful to know where that is rather than just hoping for the best. So it gives us another option and another way of enhancing the treatment of lordosis by giving us the branch and the nerve that we need to be focusing on and where that nerve root is, so we can go about treating that area of the spine, if you will. So what we will now do is look at the fascia. The fascial line we're talking about is the superficial front line, as it is known. Now, why are we talking about fascia? Well, again, along with the nerve, this helps us understand some other areas of the body that we can be working on. Now, these would be like sub areas to work on. Obviously, we want to be focusing on the muscle primarily. We could then work on the nerve, and then we could work on other areas of the fascia. So I've talked about this with the adductors as well, in how related they are to the psoas. Well, we've also got the similar thing with the rectus femoris, and as you can see here, it's coming down off the side of the neck, down through the sternum and the chest, or the rib cage, down into the abdomen, and then coming across, starting from the anterior inferior iliac spine, coming down through rectus femoris and the quadriceps, into the patella. Then you've got the subpatellar tendon, and then tibial tuberosity, and then you can follow that even further down through the tibialis anterior, and then moving on to the mid part of the foot where the arch is. So you can start to see correlations, or understand at least correlations, between different areas of the body and areas that are more likely to be affected if we are talking about lordosis. So it starts to spread our thinking a little bit further than just treating psoas, iliacus, adductors, and rectus femoris. And what is the function within lordosis that the rectus femoris is playing a role in? So as I've mentioned, it comes off the inferior iliac spine, comes down through the patella, and sort of joins in to the top of the shin here. So it plays a big role, or at least assisting in the tilting of the pelvis, for the very simple reason that it joins onto the front of it. Mechanically, it's not in the most effective position for that, but it can play a role within that. And if the psoas is pulling on the lumbar spine, then that's going to be enhancing the tilting of the pelvis, and then the rectus femoris will just be assisting in that. It will also have an effect on the gluteal group and how that is being activated, because if all of this front edge or front side of the body is becoming tight, what we're then going to find is glutes becoming imbalanced and not activating as we need or want them to. And as you can see here, as I've mentioned with regards to the fascial line, it comes all the way down onto the inside of the foot. So there could be some effect on the overpronation of the foot as well. So it may be useful thinking about what's going on in the lower leg here through the anterior tibialis, posterior tibialis, so on and so forth, and all the different muscles that join onto the inside of the foot just above the longitudinal arch. So let's now look at the stretch. So the stretch for the rectus femoris is very similar to the psoas stretch. So we're going to be down on one knee. We want to have 90 degrees here. We're not going to have 90 degrees here because we know where the rectus femoris comes down, it crosses the knee joint and goes into the top of the shin. So what we need to do to take this insertion further away from this origin up here is we need to bend the knee. So we need this knee to come up here, or sorry, the shin to come up here, which is then going to lengthen that muscle down through here. Now, as you can see here is I've got it down on a roller, which isn't a huge bend of the knee. What you could do is have a bench or a chair or a sofa in behind you, and then that will just pick the leg up that much higher, and then you can just have the foot sat on top of it. Now, what you've got to watch here is as the knee bends, is that overarching the spine? So it could be doing one of these two things. So overarching the spine because it's pulling the pelvis forward, or are you then starting, so if the knee is here, are you starting to flex forward? Because both of these sort of faults in the stretch are going to reduce the length between the start and the finish of the muscle. So what we want to be able to do is have, so you can see here, my hip is just in front of my knee. So that would be an effective position for it to be in. We want to keep the pelvis neutral throughout the stretch. We also want to maintain a proper curve within the spine. Once we've got this, we can then start to decide where we need our foot to be. So do we need just a very small raise using a roller or a cushion, or do we need something a little bit more which will go up onto a chair? So it's not deciding that you're going to do a big rectus femoris stretch because you think that's the thing to do. It's very much thinking about your anatomy and thinking, is my pelvis level? Is my spine in a proper position? And have I got a relatively vertical femur? It doesn't have to be completely vertical, but have I got a relatively vertical femur? That will then help you decide where you then need to put your foot. Do you need it down low or do you need it up high? So there we have the 3 best stretches for lordosis. You can go back through the video. So you've got the best one, which is for the psoas and the iliacus. The second best one is for the adductors. And then this third one is for rectus femoris. So hopefully this has been helpful. Hopefully it's given you a better idea of lordosis as a whole and how this muscle affects it, and also how to perform the stretch a little bit more effectively. So many thanks for watching. My name is Chris from Christopher Holt Training. I'll speak to you in the next tutorial.